Welcome to UX Evolved, where we explore how our profession adapts and thrives as AI reshapes design. I'm Eric Ellis. My guest today calls herself a troublemaker who questions things for a living. Jen Blatz is a principal UX researcher, host of the BlatzChatz podcast, and someone who's made a career out of asking, are we sure about that? Recently, Jen published 26 bold predictions for 2026, and that got the UX community talking, and some people uncomfortable. Today, we're diving into what those predictions really mean, why resilience is now the ultimate UX skill, and whether just be resilient is actually helpful advice when the ground keeps shifting. The extinction of entry-level UX jobs, and how anyone breaks into the field when junior roles require 3+ years of experience. Personal branding as mandatory. And if being good at UX now means being good on camera. Why qualitative research keeps getting cut first, then desperately needed later. If you're anxious about where UX is headed, Jen's got questions. And that might be exactly what you need right now. Jen Blatz, welcome to UX Evolved. Jen Blatz, welcome to UX Evolved.
Hello, Eric. Thank you so much for having me.
I can't wait. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while, and it struck me. I kind of had to revisit how we knew each other. It's been a while since we've seen each other in person, COVID and whatnot. And you had, I don't know where I saw it. I don't know if it was LinkedIn. I don't know if it was something that you had written, but you called yourself, let me get this right, a troublemaker who questions things for a living. And then your newsletter talks about real talk with a side eye. I love that. I love those intros, but it's not exactly a safe intro. There's no corporate UX to that intro. And I wanted to ask you what made you be that provocative? What is there value there in being that way rather than being diplomatic in today's day and age?
I guess the big question is, or the big statement is, time will tell if that's okay or not, right?
Sure.
No, that idea of me questioning things for a living comes from me being a researcher, right? And I do that for a living. But I'm also very skeptical and, how do we know that's true? A lot of assumptions our teams have about things, and I'm always like, are we sure? Do we really know that's true? And then they're like, sometimes they're very confident about it, too confident about it. But that's where it comes from, is that I question my users in interviews and in research, but I also question my team's assumptions and what they think is the best path or the right path. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I do have all the questions.
I've always found that to be one of the most endearing and highest value qualities from a researcher, is that ability to question. And I often wonder, how do you do that in a way that just does not piss people off, but that you're kind of using a Socratic method to do it? You're not doing it because you're trying to be annoying. I think oftentimes the stakeholders can see that as just you're wasting time in a process with not a lot of it.
Well, I won't say I don't piss people off, to be fair. I won't say that. But it's rooted in having trust in relationships and knowing that I'm coming from a good place. I'm not coming to attack you. I'm coming to work with you and to make sure we're aligned. So one of the best tactics I found is playing dumb. Especially in interviews, I play like this apprentice approach to questions. And I've been told by people on my team who are also observing me and taking notes, they're like, you should win an Oscar because you always play dumb and act like you don't know what that means, to get the participant to talk more. So for example, I was working at a mortgage company and I was like, oh, what do you mean by a mortgage? Could you tell me more about that?
I love
Obviously,
that.
I know what a mortgage is, but playing dumb and getting them to explain and getting more data from them helps you navigate that conversation a little bit more. Another example is at a company I was working at. They were still using a product that was a competitor of ours, and they were not supposed to. because, and they said that they were. And I was like, whoa, I heard you had to sign a contract to not use that product anymore. And so when I was like, oh, wait, what company is that? Oh, I don't think I'm lying. I'm lying to them. Of course, I know that other company. And a little truth bending is okay to play dumb and to give them, let them be the expert. Let them tell you all about it. And if I hadn't done that, or if I had called them out on the fact that they were not supposed to be using that product anymore, and they were, it would have shut down the conversation. But because I played dumb and I acted, oh, what company is that? Tell me about them. And you're going to get so much more information than if you are talking.
So that sounds like you are one of two persons in your past life. You are either an attorney that is really good at giving depositions or receiving depositions, or you have a journalism background. Which one is it?
I did work in a law firm, but I was not an attorney. I was a designer in the marketing team. So X the attorney approach. But yes, I was trained as a journalist. That's true.
Very good. And I too have a journalism background. I ended up switching majors, but there was that aspect of empathetic listening that we were trained upon. And whether it came through the teaching or whether I maybe had a natural inclination for it, I do find it to be incredibly effective. Now, with that, I want to spend the time hitting on a piece that really struck me. You I think published it at the end of last year, and kind of almost like a New Year's resolution type read. And I'll post it in the comments, the link in the comments. 26 predictions, Origin. You just basically dropped 26 predictions for 2026. What, other than the fact that that's a nice number and it aligns to the year 2026, what compelled you to write a piece like this? Were there sort of through lines that you were thinking about that kind of tied these things together, or did it come from another point of origin?
I've never done a predictions before. I've seen a lot of people do predictions, and a lot of the conversations, just why this podcast exists, is how is UX evolving? And it's evolving in a lot of ways, right? And I thought, oh, I'll just throw a list together and see what I think the industry might be going to, how AI might play a part in that. And obviously, I don't know shit, to be fair. Sorry,
you know more than you think.
Curse on this podcast. Predictions are just that, predictions, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to come true or not. But I thought, oh, it might be fun to start some conversations and some controversy around what I think some things might happen. I've had some pretty strong thoughts about design systems through the recent years.
Let's just go ahead and dive into that right now. Tell me about that prediction. What do you see as the future of design systems, but really maybe operationally speaking, design systems management in 2026 and beyond?
And I understand that design systems can mean different things to different teams, right? It can contain different things. When I talk about design systems, I'm thinking about the UI components of a design system. And the reason why my prediction is the person or people who are building out and managing a design system. And to be clear, when I say that, I'm designing the buttons and saying it needs to have this weight of stroke and this corner radius and using this font, whether it's ghost shadow or not. That's what I'm talking about. The reason why I think those positions are going to go away is because there are tools that are used by the industry. Right now, the big primary design tool is Figma. And I don't know what percentage of companies have their designs in Figma, but let's say it's a lot.
It's a lot.
So why is everyone building buttons for all of their products? It's going to come. That's my prediction. That's going to happen. And there will not need to be human people designing components. It's not going to be needed anymore.
Yeah, you see some of the things that even a few months ago, even in a tool as sophisticated as Figma, be hard or bespoke, and certainly that's becoming more and more commoditized as the tool, and particularly that one, gets more sophisticated. You see it open up a local MCP server, so you can start to push your pseudocode from Figma over to Cursor to go produce prototypes. What I'm interested in is, then what happens? So let's say that role, if it were a role in a company, doesn't exist. Is there not still, though, the need to be creative from a design standpoint? Could the mechanized aspect of building a design system make every design system look like the same damn design system? We find ourselves across the B2B and B2C SaaS spaces all using the same damn thing. I mean, Tailwind, MUI, all these frameworks, I have seen so much just out of the box poor usage because it's easy, because it's mechanized. Where does creativity fall into the future of all this?
Eric, you're right. Creativity's already dwindling as it is because people are using tools for faster outputs rather than creative or original outputs.
It makes me actually wonder if back in the day when we used to kind of wipe the slate clean and say, let's not worry about the tool right now. What are we trying to solve here? And can we come up with ways and inventions that maybe are a little surprise, but have the delight quotient into it as well, rather than looking at it as, well, what tool are we going to use and how fast can we get it? The problem is right now the economy doesn't support that kind of creative delivery. It really focuses on, what can you do for me right now?
Yeah, you're right. Speed, efficiency. Before I was a researcher, I was a designer. And I was working at a company that was building out their design system, and it was getting way behind. Nobody was giving it the love. So we all had to drop what we were doing and work on the design system. And I had to work on anything that was on top. Modals, totes, side drawers, popovers, anything, boop, that went on top. And I'll tell you right then, that was the day my desire for design died.
Very interesting.
Because I got so sick of the pixel perfect, I've got to design the hover state and the error state and the visited state and the purple socks on Tuesday state, whatever it was. I was just like, I am done. Now, I'm not saying those aren't important. They are. But for me, it killed my passion for design.
Whitney Tolley was one of my guests, one of my first, I think, second episode, and she kind of said, the age of interaction designers actually being able to look at a true end-to-end flow or a job to be done actually goes up when you can actually put down the, oh my gosh, we don't have drawer patterns to support that. Rather, let's just open up our sheet of paper, if you will, or a fig jam and actually have fun at this. So maybe there's a silver lining to this on the creative side. It's just what you make of it.
Right. Yeah.
You talked about resilience as the new black. And, everything that you're kind of saying to me right now makes me feel like, wow, UX is really chaotic right now. And I think your premise is, well, chaos is really the new normal. So I'm going to push back on you a little bit, maybe just challenge you a little bit. If you tell an anxious UX professional, just be more resilient, you're kind of telling somebody with a broken leg to walk it off. I mean, how do you actually build resilience when the ground underneath you is continually shifting?
That is a fair question. And I probably have been that person that just says, hey, girl, go walk it off.
Right.
Another part of it is you have to embrace that you can only control what you can control. And you have to understand that you gotta let the other stuff go and adapt to the stuff you cannot change. We cannot change that AI is coming into companies, and companies think that they can replace workers with AI because they've been told or whatever. We can't change that. But what can we do? We have to take action, and we have to be ready I'd worked in print design for many years and I saw what was happening and I had to pivot. I could sit there and feel sorry for myself and hope and pray that magazines and newspapers would be around forever, or I could learn new skills to get myself ready for the next role. And that plan is different for everyone.
Yeah, I've seen some go deeper, meaning that rather than just focusing on an interface responsibility, they start to go up at the kind of product lead level and take on responsibilities that historically have been product management owned. In fact, Whitney was actually the one who said, I think the days of a UX lead and a product manager being separate people are starting to come to an end. That gap is starting to close. I've also seen designers go wide. So rather than, they love the interface layer, so much so that the barrier to get to the front end code is lower than it's ever been and continues to get lower. And then they can start to move into engineering realms that used to be off limits. Thoughts there? Have you seen other types of pivots?
Yeah, I look at UX as a spectrum, and that's you teed that up perfectly. I promise that would be.
It was not. This is not in my script.
It wasn't. See, we can improvise. Like a spectrum, right? If UX UI designer is in the middle, if you skew more toward UX design, and people, you can hate my theory and you can leave a comment and say Jen's all wrong. I'm here for it. But at one end is research, at the other end is coding, like front end development. And so a lot of folks, just what you said, I'm a UI designer. I'm getting a little more down this UI to engineering range, and I'm going to let that be my spectrum, my T shape, right? Where I was a graphic designer. So I was that UI designer. That was my first UX job, was a UI designer. And then I started learning more about UX and like journey maps and personas and doing some research to inform my designs. I'm like, whoa, this is cool. So then I had a lot of hybrid roles where I was a researcher and a designer, and slowly started getting more excited about the research than I did actually designing the solution. And that's how I came more down this end of the spectrum to land as being a researcher.
I love that. I see designers, UX designers, often reluctant to take on at least a morsel of that research responsibility because they're just a little nervous. Either there's an introversion personality wise that they're kind of afraid to make that reach to speak one-on-one with people. Some don't even want to do it internally. A lot don't want to. They're afraid that the customer will be mad, or they'll give feedback that's really about bugs and not about what you're trying to study. There's that, and it's very real, sure. And then there are others who just don't feel like they have the qualifications. And so I'm always trying to push to be like, just try. There's some best practices out there, right? What would you say to that?
Absolutely. I did not study research at all. When I did a certification at Cal State Fullerton, and it was only like 6 classes, it wasn't research at all. It was more UX design, more on the UI side. And my first UX job was at a company that owns a bunch of veterinary hospitals. And so I was designing the interface that the doctors would use to record a medical record, or the technicians to book an appointment. And I'm like, I don't even understand what this is. I had no medical background. So I went into the animal hospitals to see how it was used, just to understand. And whoa, did I learn a lot. That was my first ethnographic observation. I had 0 training. I had no idea what I was looking for, but I learned a lot about human behavior and how they interact with technology and machines. And it's chaos when a doctor is trying to do a recording of your medical condition and the dog's on the table and they have to hold the dog so it won't bite them or pee on them or jump off. And so by just going in there and learning and just seeing, wow, this is not at all like I thought it was going to be, is pretty amazing. And you don't have to have any formal training. I would say have an idea of what you want to learn and what you're looking for, but always be open to see other things happening, because
I gotta believe your your UX design confidence went way up after your subject matter expertise went up, right?
And my product owner was actually a former veterinarian. So working with him and understanding the terminology, I know you hear a lot about you should know the business. That is so true because having some basic knowledge about what was going on in this software and how the terminology people used extremely elevated my conversations with doctors. I wasn't wasting time saying, "Hey, what does BP stand for?" And they're like, blood pressure. Duh.
Right.
Wasting time by not knowing the industry and what they're working in. By getting to your point, I gained so much confidence by having some basic knowledge that I could carry on a conversation with my users that much better.
All right, so let's pivot to the entry level world because I kind of want to brainstorm with you. You talk about entry level extinction. This is your number 17. For anybody who's following along in the article, we're at number 17. And I gotta tell you, I'm 20 years into my profession, so I'm starting to come down the hill a little bit. And this one, and so I am not in this cohort, but this one keeps me up at night. This has been a profession that's been so good to me and my family and my passion for just being a human powered thinker and doer. And here you are in a world where, you're saying, and I can't disagree that, look, at least right now in a world where money is expensive and hiring is tight, UX jobs entry level can be extinct quickly. And even the ones who are junior level that are like 3 years, 3 years experience. So if that's true, how do we how does anyone break in? And it's interesting. I want you to give me that perspective that you just gave me, because to me, what you just said had nothing to do with UX. It had to do with being a good listener and learning a business, right?
Exactly. And I think that is super helpful. Yes, that prediction of junior positions or entry level positions going extinct, that's not what I want by any means, but I see it happening. When was the last time you saw an entry level UX position that wasn't an internship? When was
Right.
the last time you saw that? And I feel like it's horrible. It breaks my heart because what's going to happen 10 years from now when people start retiring or we need to change? Younger generations bring in a different skill set, a different mindset that can help feed and improve the business and the process and building products.
Right.
If you cut that off, what's going to happen? Where is the natural progression of technology going to come from?
I look, as a hiring manager, I'm the first one to say, I'm just not going to bring someone in who can tell me they do Figma. I'm just not going to do it. Now, if somebody came in and said, look, I know that space, but I also know financial services, had an internship doing something in accounts receivable, saw the pain that those folks go through, understand, although I don't know, but I understand what my company that I work for now, VersaPay, does in that space. I'm much more willing to go, well, I don't have a role for you per se, but I'd certainly find a place for you if the drive and the willingness is there. Now that doesn't help the fact that numbers are numbers and there just aren't a lot of those positions open. But maybe it's going back to what you were saying before of like, look, at the end of the day, it may not be about the hard skills, especially when AI is taking over a lot of those hard skills. It may be about the soft skills that AI can't replicate.
Yeah. And I'll push back a little bit and say, will you actually hire somebody? Because your resume, maybe even a case study, isn't really going to showcase just how much you know about this alternative industry or your transition from this industry into UX. It's really hard to illustrate that in a resume. Like to say, no, I really know my stuff. I really know this industry. I have a lot of transferable skills. I think it's really hard to emphasize that and to pronounce that to a hiring manager or a recruiter or whatever's looking like it's really difficult to make that connection without having a conversation about it.
A really nice segue, actually, because you have another prediction here that I like, which is talking about the UX generalist. and in your case, the UX generalist 2.0. I remember a time when the UX generalist was that was a dirty word. We actually didn't want generalists. We wanted specialists. Were you an interaction designer by trade? Were you a visual or graphic designer by trade? Could you write? And then your job as a manager or director was to put all the pieces together and make it work. And here we are going, well, wait a minute. Tools exist now where you can learn enough to be dangerous, and then thus making you either really wide or really deep, like we were talking about before. If I had a new hire candidate, even if I didn't have a role, come to me and say, I can show you that I've done. And moreover, not only can I show you that, I can literally show you the end result. It's not just here's my portfolio anymore. It's here's the actual fruits of my labor in real production. I couldn't tell you how many new hires have ever done that with me. I don't think a single one has. It's usually about the portfolio, and I think the portfolio is kind of dead. Is the portfolio dead?
It should be. Just like take home, it should be. But Eric,
Oh,
I don't have that
we
time.
don't have. That's another episode. Where does the UX generalist come in? As AI handles more and more, is being a generalist the
Exactly.
answer?
I think people have to be. I know, Eric, you've been there where you've been asked to do something and you're like, not in my job description, or that's above my pay grade, but you do it anyways because it needs to
Yeah,
be done. And I think that's where the generalist idea comes in. It's like you're just gonna, if you want to survive, if you want to keep your job, you might have to do some things that you didn't anticipate that you would
yeah.
do day one.
I really like that. In fact, you have another prediction that talks about video first portfolios and outshining the PDF or outshining the static web page. I mean, look, I'm preaching to the choir. We both are huge fans of that, but I honestly have no clue what I'm doing in editing. Sure, I took some editing classes when I was in graduate school, but not in a way that was going to make me shine, but in a way that was going to make me competent. And perhaps that's what your generalist prediction is getting to: is get competent and don't be afraid to try something you don't know.
I was watching when I was first getting into YouTube, I was watching some different channels about how to do YouTube videos. And one thing that I think it's Think Media, it's Sean Cannell, he wrote a book on YouTube as well. He says just do 1% better every time.
Yeah.
Just try something that you didn't do last time. Like maybe it was a straight shot last time, one screen you never change. And maybe this time you put a little GIF on the top and give it a little animation or something like that. Just try a little thing every time.
Yeah. 100%. And it's good advice. You actually made me just think about how I'm going to edit this one. So I'm like, let me try something I've never done before. It's good. At the same time, there's a pressure, that generalist pressure of, and I've written about this, the drive to be business fluent. This is a number 6 in yours, and you talk about UX pros show that they understand business models. You pretty mock-ups don't pay the bills anymore. So we've talked about that already. But I meet designers all the time who say, look, I got into UX because I care about users. It's about the users. It's not about the revenue. How do you respond to that? How can you in this world be truly user-centered, but also be business-focused?
Yeah. I did an interview with Joe Natoli, so I'm going to totally steal what he said because it was great. And that users don't pay your salary, the business does.
Okay, good counterpoint there.
And let me tell you, I'm the biggest goddamn user advocate on the planet, right? And all the times I get shot down because there's no business value, technical constraints, there's loads of reasons why what the user wants cannot be done, right? And that's one of those things, again, that we have to limit ourselves of what we get upset over because we have to keep in the realm of what we can control. So
Yeah,
I can't control technical constraints. That, yeah, that's My manager always says to me, it's nice to want things. Fair, but that doesn't mean you always get what you want.
It's taken me a long time to understand and realize that like the RO having KPIs can be a good thing. It does not always have to. Imagine a world where you had the unlimited ability to fulfill all users' needs without constraints. It would be a harrowing, hair pulling, which I have none left, experience. The realities of revenue actually become part of your time, scope, resources box that you need in order to be sane, just to know what hill you're taking. So I always look at it as
Well,
something I want.
the business has a bottom line. They need to be profitable. So you're going to have a lot of metrics around success. How do you measure delight?
You put
Yeah.
you put your quant guys in a room and they're going to give you a bunch of things that ultimately end up going right back to the business. So I would say we don't measure it, and I've been doing this for a while. And you sure you're going to know it through your retention, and sure you're going to know it through your CSAT. But I get what you're saying, that it's better off going back to the business side of the metrics
Have
and
to.
using that as your North Star.
We have to. It's a business. We're not here for free. We have mouths to feed. We have rent to pay. It's transactional. It sucks. I get it. I would love to be doing this, get paid, and just do whatever the hell I want. But you know what? We live in reality, and that's not happening.
All right, so we have these predictions from you. So now the hard part. If you were to look at all of these 26 predictions and kind of put them together, there's some themes, but what we're really talking about is that ex-professionals really needing to reinvent themselves. This is kind of a time of reinvention. And it's going to, like you said, it's going to go on. There's no one way to do this. But there is a shift in mindset. And if you were to look forward, what is that shift in mindset that determines who thrives versus those who get left behind?
Yeah, I struggle with that question every flippin' day, to be honest, because there's also short term and long term adaptability. It feels like right now the short term adaptability is be a Figma master, show that you can mock up something very quickly, very beautifully to put in probably product owners' PowerPoints, honestly. A lot of stuff in that we build in Figma is not actually coming out into users' hands. So short term, because that's what the industry seems to be hiring for right now. Figma masters, visual design masters, not problem solvers. And then
Mm.
another wing is learn how to use AI, be adaptable, learn the tools, right? Those are the short term adaptabilities. Long term, when they realize that those are not solving problems, that's TBD to me because I wish I knew. Is it the pendulum swinging back to strategy and humanity and connection and all the things that some of that takes away from the experience when you automate? It's very digital. And I don't know. If I knew, Eric, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. I would be creating some little company that would do that and be billionaire.
Tell me, you've given an insight I've not heard actually, and it's kind of intriguing. It is a very pragmatic prediction of, I think what you're saying is, look, know the number one tool that every SaaS company is using right now. Know it like the back of your hand. Be a Swiss Army knife with it, and be ready to accept the challenge of how do I as a PM take an idea and put it down into something that is cogent and real and something we can user test and whatnot. And you go, that's me. I can do that. Now, what does that mean then for those who go, well, wait a minute. I thought the whole point of this thing was to problem solve. If Figma only is that part of the whole UCD equation, is that gone right now. Does AI replace that part? I mean, does user research, does empathetic, upfront qualitative interviews, is that all gone right now? Or are we just saying, look, it's not gone. It's just this is what the industry's looking for right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. Think about conversations you've had with your product teams, your product owner, your product manager. What they're saying is we got to build this feature. We got to be profitable. We've got to churn, do this, build this, show progress, meet KPIs, get this out by Q2. I'm not hearing empathy in my conversations like that. Are you?
I'm not overtly hearing it. I am hearing what you're saying. I am hearing the get it done. And I wonder if like all of the things subvert all the things that they're not saying, or the things you can't go out and tell a company, this is what I do, because they're going, who need that? We don't need that. We need doers. But in the back of your mind, well, there's more to it. There's more to it. You may not flaunt it. You may not market yourself that way, but you know it. You know it because if you know UCD, you know it.
And think about good products, they're selling the outcome. The problem that you are addressing is that outcome, right? And so as a UX person, if you think about and sell yourself as I get you to this outcome, but an experienced UX person knows what it takes to get to that outcome, all that process and due diligence and research or whatever it might be, you're efficient, not wasting dev time, like back into that outcome a little bit. And we need to help them back into that and actually come up with a plan to successfully get to that outcome.
This is the ultimate question I ask all of my guests at the end. You can answer this any way you want. If you could redesign one thing in the universe, it can be anything at all. It can be a process, it can be a service, it can be a product, it can be physical, it can be virtual. What would it be and why?
Yeah, this was a tough one because there's a lot of shit show going on out there.
I think we just talked, maybe we uncovered the reason why. We just don't, we put too much AI into it and AIize it, and we don't give ourselves time to iterate on it. I think we just solved the universe.
Maybe that's it. A specific pain point that I have dealt with recently, it's a change, was a very well-known pharmacy. I will name it CVS because we'll be real here. When you call in to fill a prescription, now, the process used to be you have your little bottle there, you just punch in the number. Okay, cool. That I can deal with. Prescription names are like speaking French to me, and I do not speak French. So they're fancy words on these medicine bottles. I don't know what they are. So I call into CVS, and they changed this a few months ago, and it pisses me off. Now, you call in, and it lists all these medicines that are due for refill. I don't even take 4 or 5 of them anymore. It's like a one-off or whatever. So they're reading all these things off, and I'm like, whoa, I don't even know what that was for, but that's not looking like the word on my bottle. Oh, okay. They think they just said the word on my bottle. So what do they make you do? Say the word of the medication.
Oh, wow.
Now you have to say,
wow,
to refill the prescription. Not press 1 for this, press 2 for this one. No, you have to say.
Somebody call them and see if there is a user researcher involved in any part of that update and whether they're doing any post hoc research on that one. Wow, that's pretty dystopian.
It's horrible. Okay, for whatever reason, whatever business bottom line cut that you are doing to get to that, whatever, but from the user's perspective, it is the absolute worst thing ever.
A great one. In fact, the most egregious one I think we've had on the podcast. It makes me think about like all of the things that will come as seemingly technological benefits, voice commands being one, smartly detecting whatever gobbledygook you tried to say, and the error rates that inevitably they're going to get out of that. Did they look at the human side of the equation? And seems to be the answer is if they did, they completely ignored it. So yet another reason for those listening to this podcast that user research, qualitative user research, humanistically driven, has a place in this world.
And yes, I agree. And it comes to this example, I can't remember who shared it, of the value of qualitative research. And they talked about if you had qual versus quant, right? How much, is this statistically significant? Let me ask you, if there is a wrinkle in the carpet, how many people do you need to see trip over that wrinkle in the carpet to know that you need to fix it? Right. Do you need 10,000 people? No. So back to your QA, what kind of voice breakdowns are happening? How many times is it not working that somebody has to repeat that medication name? Honestly, those are the hardest things to say. If English is not your first language, if you can't read, there are so many reasons why this is the worst thing ever. It really is.
Love it. Love it. That's a great one. Jen Blatz, thank you so much for being on this podcast. I loved it. I love the predictions. Again, I'm going to link that in the comments, as well as a link to your newsletter. And we welcome you back anytime.
Thank you so much for having me, Eric. It was so much fun.